42, 2019, introduced by Christiana Mercer Rigby and Deb Young, co-sponsored by Opal Jones and Liz Walsh, an act to alter the school facilities surcharge in accordance with Chapter 744 of the Acts of the General Assembly of 2019.
I move to table Council Bill 42. Wait, can we discuss if we put it on the table? Mr. Cook? If I move to table, we can't discuss? I always forget this one.
It's not debatable. The motion
Right.
would simply need to be made. If there's a second, there's a second. As I've always said, you can always explain why you vote the way you vote, but the
Okay.
motion itself is not debatable.
Can we discuss it before we second that motion?
No, I think, why don't we
You-
move to approve and then second and then discuss, and then we could move to table. Does that make sense?
You could do that.
Okay, then I'm going to move to approve Council Bill 42.
Second.
All right, so now we can discuss.
I would actually propose
Well
that,
done.
that we amend 42, and I know I need 4 votes to do that. Based on testimony, again, that we heard at the public hearings, there was concern about extending to affordable housing projects that had already been subject to complex financing schemes, the new fee structure. And so I would propose that we would add a new Section 2 where we would establish that this new facility surcharge rate would not apply to residential new construction that had received approval by the state before October 7th, or for which an application to the state of Maryland has been submitted for review and approval before that date. And then for those grandfathered projects, I would propose that we would stick to the $1.32 per square foot that's presently in place.
Does that have legal sufficiency?
It does not.
Okay.
Mr. Cook, are you able to opine on that
Yeah,
right now?
not the best way to legislate, but October 2nd of this year or last year?
This year.
October 7th, 2019.
2019.
Today.
So any,
Today.
7, lucky
Today.
7.
7. So any residential affordable housing project that essentially was applied for with state funding or had received it by today's date would be grandfathered and not subject to any new rates that the council may.
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, the concept is perfectly fine. It's within the grandfathering clause. We'd have to see the language because we can't legislate in the air. We'd have to see it in writing, but yeah, it works.
Because.
You have it?
Yeah.
Because the enabling
I think one of
had
the,
already prescribed exemptions, but not grandfathering, right? We were open to discuss grandfathering, right?
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think that was one of the things that we discussed is that when Ms. Young had proposed that type of amendment, you had said there were concerns with the grandfathering clause within the sub-regulations.
State enabling allows you to grandfather projects at whatever point in time you choose to pick, and then those projects would be subject to old rates rather than new rates.
So we can pick the project types regardless of stage. So we could select affordable housing and not others.
I certainly think that when someone's already gotten their financing, that, grandfathering them is fair. But let's not forget that there's a lot of other projects out there where people have already gotten their financing, have already acquired property, have already cleared certain hurdles with DPZ. And their projects are going to tank too. So, we probably need a robust discussion of the grandfathering, the fees, some of the stuff we got into the other day, as far as maybe different fees.
Well, I think also the other piece that was really, that you brought up and I thought was fair, which is the projections from HCPSS. And that we want to make sure we get this right. We want to make sure that it's thoughtful, it's intentional. And if that's one piece of the formula where we need to double check our math before we go forward, I'm fine double checking the math. But I think many of us feel that we need those numbers. We don't want to be waiting too long. And it was, it'd be very helpful if they could come to the next work session or provide the numbers.
It would.
Either one.
It would. And just remember, too, any exemptions that you do, and remember the $1.32 is already spoken for, because that's servicing bonds we already have. So, there's a lot of different reasons we have to get into that formula to make sure that the number's right.
Well, my,
So it needs to go
my
higher.
feeling is that we should move on this as expeditiously as possible, that we should vote yes tonight. And if we need to make changes to it later, we could adopt this amendment tonight so that at the very least, the affordable housing component is grandfathered in. And that we can make whatever amendments or reintroduce the bill with amendments in a couple of months if we feel the need to change the formula. But the
Just not
thought
sure
of
we should go at
losing,
willy-nilly.
the thought of it, it's not willy-nilly. We've spent months on these formulas, and you and I have spent a lot of time working on it, so you know that there's nothing
Yeah,
willy-nilly.
but I want legal, I want multiple legal questions answered.
But we've had multiple legal questions answered on what's in
We've
front
had
of us
one.
right now.
But the 680 is wrong.
Well,
And we
that's
know
your
that it is.
view.
But I mean, based on how you all desired and intended to calculate it, it is not right.
David's saying if you want that final number, it should be $1.32 higher. Don't we want to take the time to get it right?
I think we have taken a lot of time to get it right, and I think that it's never going to be perfect. You can always take a number and play around with it and massage it and look at it from different perspectives, and we've seen that ourselves with people who have brought us numbers for many things over the last 10 months, how they have massaged those numbers to make them look one way or the other. But I do, as long as we're talking about this, I do want to give a shout out to Delegate Ebersol, who is over here tonight. Yes, our state delegate who helped pass this legislation. And we are most grateful that you gave us this enabling legislation to allow us to raise much-needed funds for our public schools. So thank you, and thank you for being here tonight.
Yes, thank you.
And as to the issue of taking our time, you guys took the lead on this and did the analysis, and I very much appreciated that. But the analysis that we're getting now is for every month that we delay implementation of your work product is foregone revenue for schools in the amount of at least 1.2 and as high as $2.4 million per month.
Yes, the
I
past
would
3
much-
months were 1.2, yeah.
I would rather enact what we have now as amended to grandfather these certain projects that because of public policy, we decide to exempt versus others. And as Councilmember Young proposes, if for whatever reason in 3 or 4 months we decide it requires further tinkering, so be it. But in those 3 or 4 months, we don't forego millions of dollars of revenue that we so desperately need for school capital projects. Like, that is an undeniable fact that we need that money and we need it now. And I'm happy to perfect this over ensuing months, but I am not happy about leaving money on the table right now.
I don't think anybody wants to leave money on the table, but I want to pass something that is sound and sensible.
I mean, just think of it's somewhere between 1.2 and 2.4. Like,
Well, the last 3 months have been 1.2.
yeah. So, and if we're
It
going
would
to
be
be
1.
equitable about grandfathering, again, we've just argued that for affordable housing projects that already have their financing, they should be grandfathered. Well, any project that's already got their financing should be grandfathered, which means we're not giving up money in month 1 or month 2. From a larger perspective, though, I sat in this room many nights during the Apfo debate, and I know it was an election year, so there were some different pressures, but I watched the public push the council to some bad policy. And we're now paying the price for that bad policy. We've gotten hundreds of emails over the last couple of days that just say, pass 42 as written. Well, okay. And it's kind of based on this. We need the money. We need it now. Don't think it through. If you need to change it later. Well, you know what? we need to create some predictability for the school system, for people out there doing stuff, to go through all this and pass it with the intention of just continuing to change it.
Yeah.
We're not looking to wait for my infamous commission that I want to create. We're looking to we need to have a work session with DPZ and school planning at it.
Well, we actually asked for, we actually planned a work session with DPZ and the school district to attend, and they didn't show up. So I really don't see.
Well, then
and
why?
not-
Well, then why?
And
are
I'm not
we-
throwing shade on DPZ, because DPZ
Right.
was there. We have spent 4 months looking at this formula and perfecting it, and kudos to our county auditor for the amazing amount of assistance he has given us in this process. We are most grateful and glad to have you back, too. I feel very confident that the numbers that we have reached are good numbers, that they are justifiable, that they are numbers that have been given a lot of thought, and that we're at a good place to move on this legislation.
Deb, the one of the 4 main assumptions isn't right. The $1.32 isn't right. We haven't perfected anything. And in all honesty, if the school system can't get to a work session, we're trying to get them the money. They need to come and let us know how they're going to spend it, how they're going to leverage it. We're doing it for the school system. They need to get to a work session. They need to answer some questions about this. And we need to, I know we're not going to perfect it, and I appreciate that, but we need to get it to a place where everybody can kind of go back and say, look, this is how we got there. And it was based on some sound assumptions. And look, if they just refuse to come, obviously at some point, can't wait forever, but
No, and I will say this, not that I'm really trying to defend the school system not showing up for this, but they have given us the numbers. They have shown us what they need. They have indicated in their last year's budget, they've updated that for us. They most recently sent us another significant piece of information that talked about what their future needs are. I mean, we have plenty of information from them and had plenty of information from them in order to put together the formula.
But I
that
think
we
we're
put
still
together.
missing the projections, the most updated projections regarding student yield. And I think that's the one that Mr. Youngman has a hold up on.
well, and
I
in
think we
addition
just
to
got
that,
those.
let's just
We
go.
did just get those.
Updated projections for student yield for
got the
which is
September
new
enrollment.
construction.
I saw the September enrollment.
Yeah, the September enrollment,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that's not new construction versus resales, which is,
I don't know when they do that, but again, we could wait for this, this thing, and then that thing, and then this thing, and we could be waiting forever, who knows?
well, I don't
you
think
know?
anyone wants to wait forever, but I don't know.
Look, I mean, clearly, you were a sponsor of this bill, you know that's important.
Absolutely.
All of us know it's important. Nobody came in here and testified that we shouldn't increase the fee. I mean, that ship has sailed. I don't think anybody did. It's just a matter of balancing the pain with how you justify the number. And back to the school system a little bit, and this probably isn't planning, this is maybe facilities or finance, but they also still haven't told us how they're going to really spend it. Are they going to spend it dollar for dollar, knocking out one more HVAC system a year?
They
Or are
can't do
they
that.
gonna-
They're actually not allowed to
Hope they're
spend it
gonna
on renovations.
Oh, that's
Spend it
right.
on
I'm sorry.
Hammond High
They
School.
can only spend it on additions and
Let's
construction.
write it
Right.
into the bill.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Hammond High School.
But I haven't really gotten a clear question of why can't they leverage this money right now? We need the capacity now, not in 10 years.
Well, but I've been asking about our bond capacity because I think that's an issue. We can't just keep borrowing. Like at some point you hit your credit limit, and I think we're very close to that. That's why Spending and Affordability always recommends only 70 million in capital bonds.
Right, but this
90.
is, but that's a function of and a ratio of the cash flow coming in. If we're
Yes.
gonna add $12 million a year in cash flow,
then what does
That
what does
can be
that get us in
leveraged.
capacity? Yeah, absolutely. And then, are they spending it sort
That
of
means we
cash
could
and
do
pay-go style? Or
Talbot Springs and Hammond.
well, I look at those appropriations, and I think Talbot Springs could be done.
Thank you for
Anyway.
just saying Turf Valley, Deb. I didn't say that.
Look, I have Talbot
Thought that
Springs
was-
on this side, I have Hammond on that side, you're all the way down there, so,
I thought
Hey,
that
and we
was
could always
elementary
save some-
school,
We can always
46.
save some money on that firehouse, Deb.
Okay,
That
all
would
right.
be great, that would
Yeah.
be $1 million.
All right, all right, so, I am gonna move to table 42, because I do think that there are outstanding legal questions, and I do want the updated projections for student enrollment for HCPSS. It's.
Second.
Thank you. Forgot, my bad. But it's important. It's important for me to be able to do things thoughtfully and intentionally, and if I've gotten my math wrong, or if something is wrong, I'm okay to analyze that and say, where did it go wrong? How can I do better? And so I'd like to table it for a month so we can have these discussions. So,
And just to
oh,
respond.
yep.
No, just to respond to Ms. Walsh's question, there actually are a couple of things that we would like to look at, and tabling the bill tonight will not prevent this from being raised later.
Okay. Could we change the date to whatever that date is?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Ms. Schwartz-Jones, please call the vote to table Council Bill 42, 2019.
Okay, Mercer Rigby,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
No,
Oh, wait.
apologize, Dr. Jones, I apologize.
It's okay. We don't always have to go in the same order.
Pardon me?
We don't always have to go in the same order.
True that.
But my vote is yes.
Ms. Walsh
No.
and Mr. Youngman.
Yes.
All right. Council Bill 42 is tabled for a brief time.
Okay, Council Bill 40.